What's going on, everybody? This is Lady Luck Club here again. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Oh man, we have Johnnie Walker Dread. He did a three-part series on the Prince of Pan Crust Pizza, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. The Prince of Pan Crust Pizza. The Prince of Pan Crust Pizza had a dissertation that he submitted to PCOM to 3 advisors, and somehow it never made its way on the website. So I realized that, something like that should be made available to the public. It should be made available to the public. And Jay Witt and I tell this story all the time because I actually did reach out to the school, emailed them, did a video covering the email, posted it up. So you guys can go see that on the channel if you want. I also have it in the Umar Johnson playlist with this clown head, and read the email that I sent. Jay Witt, my brother in Christ, from Jay Witt Podcast, shout out to him, emailed the school's librarian, and they responded, sent back a copy of the dissertation. And from there, it spread like wildfire because you all should be able to read the buffoonery in the workings of Umar Johnson and his dumb thoughts. And so Johnnie Walker Dread got a copy of it and did a fantastic 3-part series breakdown on the dissertation. And I am here for it. Shout out to you, Johnnie Walker Dread. He left me a comment as well in my videos saying on the video, especially talking about the dissertation, that he did a breakdown on it. You're welcome. Thank you, because I enjoyed your breakdown videos and they were just absolutely hilarious. So I want to give some reaction and commentary and feedback. So we're going to start with the first part 1 and go to part 3. Make sure you guys hit the like button and subscribe to the Lady Luck Club here. We are growing. We are over 27,500 supporters, and I am hoping to be at 30,000 by the end of September. Yes, it's very doable. So make sure you're sharing the videos, sharing this content, and consider becoming a member. We're going to have members only live this Friday. We're going to have a good time. And it's a way to kick back and just relax and talk to you guys on a more personable level and get whatever you want off your chest. Also, make sure you check out the description of the video for Dr. Squatch products. We have a partnership with them here in the Lady Luck Club. I do receive a commission percentage of the sales for each product that you purchase that is tagged in the video. So you must purchase the product that is tagged in the video for me to get the commission. It does help towards the channel. Now let's get to it. Now that we've gotten everything out the way. So this is part 1 of Johnnie Walker Dread. Shout out to him. Make sure you guys check out his YouTube channel as well. Fantastic content creator. He did such a good job. Let me hit the subscribe button. I mean, it was just well done, Johnnie Walker. Well done. And then we're going to go to part 2 and 3. Let's get to it.
Well, I finally got a copy of Umar Johnson's dissertation. You probably know him as Dr. Umar. Hold on to that thought. At any rate, Dr. Umar has been running this scam involving the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy for, 10 years now. But it looks like he's going to lose his school within the next week or so. And so there's been a lot of banter about that on YouTube. More recently, his dissertation has surfaced, and that has raised serious questions about whether he should have received his doctorate or not. And after reading it, there are some serious problems with it. So serious, in fact, that I wouldn't have approved it if I was on the graduation committee. And in this video, I'll tell you why. Hello out there. I am trying to get through it.
With his powerful brain waves cradled in the warmth of reasoning, it's time for Johnnie Walker Dread to straighten you out on a thing or two. Emanating all the way from exciting Las Vegas, Oklahoma, it's the Johnnie Walker Dread Show.
First, let me give a shout out to PhD Investigator for his insights, as well as Lennon Honor and Jay Witt for making this dissertation available. You can view their podcast about this dissertation by clicking in the link in the description below. One of the first things that I always look at is the references. I'm not interested in how many so much, but their overall quality. If you recall, Rashad Ritchie's were absolutely abysmal and were clearly just cited off of a listing provided during an online Google search. They included tons of magazine articles and online blog posts like you would see in a middle school history class.
Wow.
A large number of them didn't even contain that which he was claiming in his arguments, while some were secondary sources that pointed to uncited and out-of-date primary sources. It was a total mess. Those issues don't seem to surface in Umar citations. Almost all entries are journal articles, and they're fairly timely, and that's good. However, as I mentioned in another video, a serious problem appears that I consider fatal. Whaley in 1993 published Self-Esteem, Cultural Identity, and Psychosocial Adjustment in African American Children. This is a pretty important paper when it comes to the whole subject of self-conceptualization amongst African American children. But Umar doesn't cite it. But okay, an oversight. It shouldn't happen, but it does. But it gets worse. Much, much worse.
Oh, wow.
There are 2 papers published prior to Umar's dissertation that are not only relevant, but overlap his own research almost completely.
Yep.
In 1995, Trustee Watts and Lim published Multidimensional Self.
This is so good. It just speaks to the concept of, and I don't want to say plagiarism, but overlapping themes and whole sections of the dissertation with other dissertations that were written prior to his. And once again, I have yet to see a school transcript, a video of the commencement ceremony of Umar Johnson graduating from PCOM, or a copy of the actual degree. Not some student ID badge that looked like it could have been, forged. No. This man actually graduating his actual degree, a transcript, tangible evidence that could be used to prove he attended the school and he graduated. And I want to know what type of grades he received, because his dissertation was god awful. And I do have the dissertation uploaded on my channel as well. Like I said, I sent the email out to PCOM and sent it out to the 3 advisors. And Jay Witt sent it to the librarian, and the librarian just responded first. And it's awesome because it was just a matter of who got it. It didn't even matter. It's a matter of getting out the truth to the public and having it made available to the public, because it was not uploaded to the PCOM website. And that was concerning. Why would you not? Of all the dissertations, from someone that claims to have 1,000 degrees and to be so intellectual and so intelligent and smart and educated and, all these things, that have all this knowledge, why would you not want your dissertations available to the public? Why would you not want people to read your dissertations? And that's a prerequisite in order to get a, graduate degree, either way. So to not want that be made available to the public, and you're getting a doctorate degree in something, in anything, don't care what it is, was questionable at the very least. And now I'm starting to see why. Well done, Johnnie Walker Dredd.
Concepts and achievement in African American middle school students. And you'll notice that this is almost word for word the same title as Umar's.
Yep.
The relationship between self-concept and academic achievement in African American middle school students, a correlational study. Same topic, comparing self-concept to achievement, same population, African American middle school students. Their study included only grades 7 through 8, which we would call junior high. In 1996, Trustee Watts and Garvey House published Relationship Between Self-Concept and Achievement for African American Pre-Adolescents, where they extended their previous study to include grades 4, 5, and 6. Their results contradicted their previous study on grades 7 through 8, and that alone would make for intense discussion in Umar's dissertation. What grades did Umar study? Grades 5 through 8. But the title of his dissertation says middle school. Grade 5 is not typically middle school.
Middle school.
Exactly. In other words, Umar essentially covered the same ground as Trustee Watts, Lim, and Garvey House covered in their 2 studies. But Umar doesn't mention either of them in the references. He never cites them. At this point, if I'm on his graduate committee, I'm rejecting his dissertation. When you earn your doctorate, you are considered an expert on that topic. But he seems unaware of the 3 most relevant research studies on the topic. Now, I highly doubt that Umar overlooked those studies. So why would he ignore them? And that got me thinking that perhaps he used the same data source as those 2 studies, which would make his study almost completely derivative. Obviously, he cannot admit to that. If he rounded up his own participants, on the other hand, then one could argue at least that while his research is not innovative, it at least could serve as a replication study of the prior two studies. I
Exactly.
don't think that's dissertation level research, though.
It's not.
So, how did he get his data?
It's like a middle school essay, except 80 something pages long and exhausting. And then you have some tables and graphs in it. And then it's based upon, he'll get to it. But, what baffled me in going through it, because when I did my video on it, I just did a summary from Adobe. I refused to read the entire thing to my audience, but I did read it. And I was just like, this is a headache. It was a headache because it was so rudimentary. And it's almost as if, humanity would survive without this dissertation being in existence. Like no one needed Umar Johnson's dissertation for anything. I learned nothing from it. It was not informative of anything. And considering the fact that there are two other dissertations that could have been easily read and, research that came prior to him, and he didn't even cite it. I mean, what do you have to hide? It's a pan crust pizza. Why would you not cite the two dissertations that you utilized to put together your own, that you did not want uploaded to PCOM's website, but you're supposed to be some sort of public figure and all? It's mighty funny how these things happen, huh?
Well, let's go see. Chapter 3 is the methods section, and he claims a total of 101 student participants, of which 53 were females and 46 were males. And you can tell right away that this isn't a mathematics dissertation. And the rest of the paragraph is even more ridiculous, but that'll wait for another video. Oh, wait, I'm not a social scientist. Who am I to add 46 and 53 and note that it doesn't add to 101? But enough of that. Let's read on. And it says right here, as archival data were used, so he didn't form his own populations at all. He simply took existing data and analyzed it. Gee, I wonder who studies provided that data. He says right here that archival data were obtained during the 2007-2008 academic school year and included report card grades, the harder SPPC inventories, and responses to 6 open-ended questions answered after completing the harder SPPC. But who questioned these students? If it was Umar, then this is not archival data.
Right.
If it wasn't Umar, then who? I poured through the document and I couldn't find mention of the data source anywhere. So there's no way to check Umar's claims. And for the record, I don't believe that anybody should get a doctorate using archival data. Part of the doctoral program is to prove that you can conduct research on your own. So you should have to.
That's exactly. It wouldn't be any different if it were based on the subject of science or medicine or technology or mathematics. It wouldn't be any different in any other study. So why is he? I'm still waiting on the transcript and some proof that he graduated from the school and actually walked across the stage and has a degree. I want to see the degree with the transcript from PCOM. Because if this is how his dissertations look, can you imagine what his grades look like from the classes?
To show your graduate committee that you know how to form populations, administer studies to populations, get IRB approval, all those things. When you use archival data, you don't have to do those things. And so it makes it too easy. But that's just my opinion. A bit further down, it discusses these open-ended qualitative questions in more detail. But again, there isn't even a hint on who wrote the questions. And by the way, there are serious problems with these questions, which I will cover in my next video.
Wow.
The procedures section provides more clues. Evidently, it was one school in Philadelphia. Umar is from Philadelphia. He mentions that an examiner administered the questions, but doesn't tell us whether this examiner was a teacher, staff member, or himself. In the acknowledgement section, he mentions that Dr. Tamara Thomas Smith helped him secure the data. From where? Who knows?
Wow.
But again, Umar is writing this section as if he administered the study to a population of school children in Philadelphia, but that would require a high-level approval from an institutional review board.
Right.
If this study was truly archival and Umar never disclosed the source of this data, under no circumstances should his graduate committee approve his dissertation.
Thank you.
So what do I think happened? Well, I have no proof, but I think Umar had originally planned to make up a story that he had gone into a Philadelphia middle school and administered this study. All would have gone well, But at some point, it became clear that he couldn't do that without getting IRB approval. And because this study involved student grades and discussions on their self worth, that wouldn't have been easy. The
Not at
IRB
all.
would have had little trouble sniffing out Umar's complete lack of preparation or outright fraud. So he
Hmm.
changed his data source to archival, which would lower the IRB requirement to exempt. He still has to get IRB approval, but that would be far easier, and they would ask far fewer questions. After all, what are the chances that archival data on the very topic he wants to study is available from classrooms in the very city that he lives? Now, the
Wow.
other possibility that I mentioned before is that he got his data from the studies by trustee and colleagues, and he doesn't want to reveal that because it would open his research to too many questions. That would explain why he
Just like his school and the con that he continues to perpetuate, that he's going to open it. You know, this is the same reason why he doesn't want to open his general ledgers or the receipts or invoices or the Cash App and PayPal payments that he's received or bank statements or anything, because it would raise too many questions as to what he's doing with the money. Because what are you doing with the money? What are you doing with the money, Prince of Pan Crust Pizza? What are you doing with the money?
chose not to cite them. Could his data be legit? Well, maybe, but it's incumbent on the author to persuade the reader that his study has merit. Not citing the most relevant research and not citing the source of your data, that's not how it's done.
Exactly.
Research like Umar's is the reason that we now have to upload our datasets to public archives. Back in the day, you used to have to email the author. I did that many years ago when analyzing the meta analysis of John Hattie, whose work I find downright worthless. And no, Hattie never responded to my request. In part two, we'll dive deeper into the methodology. In the meantime, like my video and subscribe to my channel.
Make sure you do
Time
it.
now for part two of my demolition of Umar Johnson's dissertation. We've had a lot of fun so far, and the fun continues. I've already generated some criticism. The complaints from Umar's fans are almost as stupid as Umar's dissertation. So,
Yeah, they're going to complain because they're not going to read it either. I want to make sure I gave it a thumbs up. Once again, make sure you guys check out Johnnie Walker Dread's YouTube channel and shout out to him for doing this breakdown. This is fantastic. I am enjoying it so far. And not only am I learning, but it's entertaining. And I just enjoy getting, someone else's perspective on what I read. And I just, thank goodness I'm not the only one, along with Jay Witt and Lennon Honor, that feel like this was mind numbing. I learned nothing from this dumb dissertation. Umar Johnson is an idiot.
I shrugged that off pretty easily. I mean,
Who are you to criticize such a great man who has dedicated his life to building a Pan-African school for students with our money?
That's never
but
open.
then again, who are Umar's followers to criticize me, given that they're pretty dumb? Others like Mark Lamont Hill on Twitter raised valid points. For example, my claim about the rigor demanded of dissertation research is based on my experience conducting PhD research, and I often forget that this is a PsyD dissertation that we're analyzing. Guilty as charged. Although that doesn't let Umar off the hook because his dissertation doesn't
Not
even
at
meet
all.
whale shit standards. Also, I said that in my opinion, dissertation research shouldn't be based on archival data. I agree with Mark that is too strong of a statement, but I should add that
I don't. Step it up. You're getting a doctorate degree, Mark Lamont. And why are you taking up for a grown man? And I'm sure if he opened a school, which he will never do, you will never allow your son to attend because you've read his dissertation and you know it's a pile of garbage. Stop defending this grown man who does not pay your bills.
inserted a note saying that my comment didn't necessarily apply to all fields. But fair enough. So it's time. Let's get on with the show. Hello out there. I am trying to get through.
With his powerful brainwaves cradled in the warmth of reasoning, it's time for Johnnie Walker Dread to straighten you out on a thing or two.
Laughable.
Emanating all the way from exciting Las Vegas, Oklahoma, it's the Johnnie Walker Dread Show.
I spent quite some time in my last video hemming and hawing over whether Umar used archival data for his study. Why the big to-do? Well, if Umar conducted a study on human subjects but told the Institutional Review Board that it was archival, that would wipe out his dissertation. So it's a big deal.
Yes.
Umar mentions numerous times that his study was purely archival. However, I felt that throughout the dissertation, he talked about the study in a manner that made it seem that he did, in fact, conduct research on human subjects. Now, I'm going to back away from that claim.
It's misleading. It's misleading considering the fact that you would think him being so smart and all. getting a doctorate in psychology, that he will want to have some sort of study method developed on his own, and whatever testing procedures or the data that, however he gathered his data to support it, that he could be creative enough to come up with this. But see, here's the thing: when you con your way through life and then you tell people that you're going to open up a school for over, 10, 15, 20 years, and you never do, plus you never show any expenses, which is simple accounting, just simple accounting. Um, how are we to believe that this is legitimate? That this is something that he really, if he put his all into this dissertation, I wouldn't trust him to be near a school, let alone run one. Mark Lamont obviously doesn't have a high level of intelligence if he thinks that this dissertation was even valuable to the average person, and you don't need a doctorate degree to see that that dissertation was garbage. And the question would be, Mark Lamont, why don't you ask your buddy, why didn't you post this up a long time ago? You have content creators emailing the school, like myself and Jay Witt, and trying to get copies of this dissertation because it should have been made available to the public. Reading this and giving a breakdown. Intelligent people who are reading this and saying, this is a load of garbage, because this is being cross-referenced against other dissertations, and it's the title, the theme, the wording is so similar to two other dissertations that he didn't even cite. As if no one can just run this through a system to see if it's going to come up with a hit, to see any similarities or, signs of plagiarism that exist on the entire internet. We're not tapping into some alternate reality here. This is basically what we are able to read and understand for ourselves, Mark Lamont and Umar Johnson. You're not going to sit here and persuade others on how to think and perceive and to understand what we're reading and understanding with our own two eyes and our own brain and the information we're processing. We're not going to see eye to eye on that. And you're going to have to be okay with that, Mark Lamont.
Source of his data seems to be Tamara Thomas Smith, who was an assistant principal at a school called, and I'm not making this up, Leslie Pinckney Hill Elementary School.
Oh, God.
Even though it's called an elementary school, it included grades 7 through 8, which jives exactly with the grades that Umar needed to conduct his study.
Oh, God.
Now, that school closed in 2009, so she moved on to another school, Sheridan West Academy, but that school didn't teach the grades that Umar covered in his study. Therefore, I suspect that the data was collected at Hill Elementary. And since the school closed in 2009, Umar couldn't have conducted his study on those students directly because he hadn't started his doctoral program yet.
Wow.
As such, Thomas Smith must have been the one that conducted the data collection, making the data used in Umar's study purely archival. Why did Thomas Smith collect this data? Who knows? I couldn't find it published anywhere. Umar claims that the data was collected during the 2007 to 2008 school year, which makes sense. She had already completed her EDD well before then, so it wasn't for that. Whatever the case, it appears that Thomas Smith had this data, and somehow Umar found out about it and asked if he could use it in his study. I guess that's all I can do. This is why we identify our data sources.
Right.
We shouldn't have to piece this together.
Right.
By the way, my buddy Brian has reached out to Thomas Smith for clarification on this issue. I'll let you know how she responds, if she does. In the end, Umar had a very easy study to conduct. The IRB approval process would have been a snap. He wouldn't have had to create questionnaires, sanitize personal identities, arrange for survey administration, record the data, none of that.
God.
And in no way, shape, or form did he spend much time preparing a quality dissertation. Let's read a portion of Chapter 3. The sample of this archival study was comprised of 100.
Expecting this to be of quality, it's just too much to ask for when he will not even produce receipts and vendor invoices to prove that money is being spent to renovate a school. Perhaps we should ask Mark Lamont, does he plan on ensuring that the teacher salaries are paid every year if this school opens up? Mark Lamont, are you going to pay off the schools and make sure that the teachers have insurance plans and retirement packages? Are you going to make sure that the school passes inspections and get insured? What is your role in all of this, since you want to defend Umar Johnson's grown ass as if he can't handle his own dissertation himself, because he wrote this damn thing.
And one student participant. And yeah, he puts the word archival before study all the time. That also raised my suspicions. The sample included 53 female participants and 46 male participants. And as I noted before, 53 and 46 don't make 101.
It doesn't. Simple math, Mark Lamont.
The overwhelming majority of students identified their racial heritage as Black, followed by African American. Okay. However, all participants would be correctly identified as African American. So some students claim to be Black, but Umar is having none of that. If you consider yourself Black, well, you're just wrong, and you get reclassified according to what he thinks you are.
Dear God.
Gee, I wonder why we use checkboxes rather than open-ended responses for collecting demographic data.
Who knows?
For example, a student might write Indian, but you don't know if that means American Indian or Asian Indian. Checkboxes, they're a good idea. It goes on to say that 40% were Christians, and just as many claimed no religion, which still leaves 20%.
Because math.
Were they Muslim?
Oh, wait, Mark Lamont trying to defend this, and the math is off? You're talking about addition of two-digit numbers. Mark Lamont, what's 53 plus 46? Why is there a variance if you're saying exactly 101 students participated? 101 students participated. Why is there a variance? It doesn't make sense. It should not be a variance. It shouldn't even be a percentage. It was out of 101, it was 50 and 51. 49 and 52. How did we get here? Why is there a variance? Okay.
If 20% of your population is Muslim, that could have significant effects on your self-concept analysis. But Umar just leaves us guessing. What's missing in this paragraph? The number of special education students who can gum up the works in any educational study. In some states, this number can be very high. And guess which states have the highest percentages of special ed students? New York, Maine, and Pennsylvania. Where was this study conducted? Oh yeah, Philadelphia. According to Philadelphia School District, 15% of its students are classified as special ed, but 72% of those in the emotional support category, which is extremely pertinent to this study on relating self-concept to achievement, were Black. In sum, a very sizable population of those in this study were likely special ed, with the overwhelming majority of those deemed in need of emotional support. Maybe. We can't know because Umar never bothered to run the numbers.
Right.
The problem with archival data is that you can't always disaggregate it according to student disability categories. The students have long moved on. But Thomas Smith should have had access to such special education data. At the very least, I would have told Umar that he needed to acknowledge this problem in the limitations of the study section and hope to beat hell that the graduate committee still thinks the data is meaningful. So one paragraph loaded with issues. Keep in mind, 5 people on his graduate committee were handed the responsibility of reviewing his dissertation before he defended. None of them apparently noticed these discrepancies, although they...
Or the mathematical errors. It's math. 53 plus 46 is 99. Where are the other 2 students? Mark Lamont. How could he even try to defend this without reading it? He didn't read this. There's no way he read it. Mark Lamont, just shut the hell up.
Pop out with even a cursory glance. If you can't be bothered to even read the student's dissertation and provide feedback, then don't serve on a graduate committee.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not a social scientist. How dare I point out such potential factors? Only veteran social scientists can understand how being in an emotional support category of special ed could influence a student's self-worth and academic achievement. And if you ever have the misfortune of having me on your graduate advisory committee,
graduate career.
Just kidding. I'm actually a good dude who will work with you to make your dissertation something special, something that you can be proud of. The fact that I'm not a social scientist actually provides me with a
irrelevant.
perspective that you might need to hear. I find Appendix B interesting. It contains a questionnaire that was delivered.
Johnnie Walker Dredd, you don't need to be a social scientist or anything. I mean, this is something that any person, the average reader can, read and come up with the same issues that you've come up with, starting with the simple mathematics, because arithmetic is important.
to students to complete. By whom? We can only guess. It's Tamara Thomas Smith. The first two questions are loaded. How has being Black affected your performance in school? And how has being Black affected the way you feel about yourself? Both questions presume that being Black affects the respondents in their school performance or self-concept, which can bias the results. Besides, the central focus of this research was to question whether being Black affects students in some way. These questions presume it. On top of that, question 5 asks, why do you think you do well or not do so well in school? But you've already planted the idea in question 1 that one reason is their skin color.
Right.
Question 3 asks, what does being Black mean to you? I don't think a middle schooler would know how to respond to that.
Not at all.
But what does that even mean? Yes, creating valid and reliable open-ended questions is hard, but it's doctoral level research. It's not meant to be easy. Oh, you have to chuckle at the use of the word Black, because as far as Umar is concerned, these kids are not Black, they're African American. Black is incorrect.
Exactly.
So is this questionnaire worth anything? No.
No.
The problems with the questions are simply too severe. But Umar will still cherry pick a few responses that meet his political worldview, but that's for another video. We're just beginning, so stay tuned for more videos on Umar's dissertation. Like my video and subscribe to my channel.
Well
Time
done.
now for my third installment of my reaction to Dr. Umar's doctoral dissertation, and your decision to salute him as doctor is probably waning after each video. So as I mentioned, my buddy Brian emailed the person we are somewhat certain provided the data, Tamara Thomas Smith. It read, I'm contacting you due to recent events where Dr. Umar Johnson's doctoral dissertation has been made public. They are saying that the data he used was fake, and I'm trying to clarify the situation to stop any disinformation from spreading. Very noble of you, Brian. As far as I understand, you helped Dr. Umar collect the data while you were at the Leslie P. Hill Elementary School. Can you confirm that? Was Dr. Umar maybe even employed at the school himself? I would appreciate any information you can provide in this matter. And we got a response.
What?
And it's very illuminating. Hello out there. I am trying to get through.
With his powerful brainwaves
Let's
cradled in
go.
the warmth of reasoning, it's time for Johnnie Walker Dredd to straighten you out on a thing or
Oh,
two.
this should be interesting.
Emanating all the way from exciting Las
Oh my
Vegas,
God.
Oklahoma, it's the Johnnie Walker Dredd Show.
Is this
So we
going to
will
be
finally learn where Dr. Umar got his data. The veil
mind-blowing?
of secrecy will be lifted. Accountability will rule the day. You see, it's all about transparency, making sure that the integrity of science remains intact. We need to trust the science. Yeah, well, you, she says, don't bother me with these questions. Contact his school. That's right. She refuses to answer. She knows the answers to Brian's questions. Umar. That's right. Yeah, well, you, she says, don't bother me with these.
Wait a minute, we're trying to get clarity here. Good afternoon. You reach out to, and that's all I see, and respectfully at the bottom, her first name. You are an embarrassment right now, lady. Tamara, you're an embarrassment. You're supposed to be educated and mature. And I mean, I don't understand. Something you may need in this regard. That's all I see here. I'm sorry. I'm gonna keep going.
Making sure that the integrity of science remains intact. We need to trust the science. Yeah, well, you, she says, don't bother me with these questions. Contact his school. That's right. She refuses to answer. She knows the answers to Brian's questions. Umar thanked her in the acknowledgement section for her help in securing the data. So Brian did, in fact, email the department chair to inquire about Umar's data source. It reads, Dear Dr. Dick Tomaso. No, he's not the sports car designer. I am contacting you due to recent events where the doctoral thesis of one of your former students has been made public. Dr. Umar Johnson is a controversial figure nowadays, mostly for advocating for racial segregation and mismanaging around $2 million in donations. His dissertation, approved by you, is now available at, well, this Google Drive address. Dr. Umar was one of the few students who chose not to have his dissertation made public on the PCOM website. Among the notable lack of academic rigor in the work, one issue stands out in particular. Dr. Umar Johnson claims that the dataset he used was archival, yet there is not a single reference to the source of the data, and he describes the data as if he had collected it himself. Can you perhaps shed any light on the circumstances under which Umar Johnson was awarded a doctorate at PCOM? Well, it's been 5 days and no response, and we're never going to get one.
Nope.
This is what social science research is all about. Obfuscate, cloak, hide, and whatever you do, never, ever, ever publish that which violates the leftist narrative. Oh, you're offended by my take on social science? Well, tell that to Roland Fryer, who dared publish research that contradicted the claims of Black Lives Matter.
We collected millions of observations on everyday use of force that wasn't lethal. We collected thousands of observations on lethal force. And the key question, I alluded to it earlier in a bit of a joke, but the key question is not just this arbitrary, silly snapshots that some journalists, not named Barry, do a lot, which is Black people are 13% of the population and they are 50% of the police shootings. I'm sorry about that, but I don't know what that has to do with the question. And so what my paper showed, you'll see tomorrow, like some of you, was that, yes, we saw some bias in the low-level uses of force, every day pushing up against cars and things like that. People tend to like that result, but we didn't find any racial bias in police shootings. Now, that was really surprising to me because I expected to see it. The little known fact is I had 8 full-time RAs that it took to do this over nearly a year.
Huge number of research assistants.
When I found the surprising result, I hired 8 fresh ones and redid it to make sure. They came up with the same exact answer, and I thought it was robust. And I went to go give it, and my God, all hell broke loose. People lost their minds. I mean, it was like colleagues of mine were going, well, I don't believe these results. He's using regressions. I'm like, well, what the hell else have we been using? I mean, we've been using them for ever. That's what you use. I had colleagues take me to the side and say,
This was at Harvard University.
You'll ruin your career.
Perhaps the most important video I ever published
Wow.
is almost never watched, but it's my reaction to Roland Fryer's massive seminal study on police brutality that pissed off so many BLM supporters. So we go back to chapter 3, methodology.
Wow.
I already covered this participant section, and the next section contains nothing interesting. So let's look at the
fact that, Brian Turner emailed 2 different individuals trying to verify the archival data, Mark Lamont, is telling. Is at least proof that no one's trying to put out some narrative that is not factual or correct. But you didn't aid in that at all either. You didn't aid in the pursuit of truth at all. And you call yourself a member of the free press. That's what's so insulting to you, to all of us who consider themselves to be independent journalists, who consider themselves to be commentators, those who actually care about factual information being put out to the public. And when there is a pursuit of this information and you have people emailing, trying to get data verified, you're not helping in that, but you're basically trying to tell someone they shouldn't have their opinion. Something to which no one gives 2 shits about. All right. This is incredible. Well done, Johnnie Walker Dredd. Well done.
design section. Archival data collected from a low-income, predominant African-American public school in the northeastern section of the United States, Philadelphia, were used for the purposes of this study. Archival data, and again, Umar reminds us over and over that this was archival data.
Over and over.
I find that interesting, but okay. Archival data were obtained during the 2007-2008 academic school year and included A, report card grades, and I'll have a lot to say about the grades these kids received in my next video. It's pretty astonishing. B, harder SPPC inventories. Okay, harder SPC inventories, fancy term for a survey. I always find it funny how social scientists describe their questionnaires and surveys as instruments, diagnostics, tools, fancy lingo for we asked them a bunch of stuff. You want to see what it looks like? It's right here in Appendix A, and boy, is this sophisticated. Ooh, this is an instrument. I am so impressed.
What?
See,
Mark Lamont said something about
demographic
that.
questionnaires for each child. I already picked on the absurdity of those in the previous video. B, responses to 6 open-ended questions answered after completing the harder SPPC. Again, I shredded these in the previous video. They're poorly designed and as a result, worthless. E, hope and culture scales, which were created to gain possible information with regard to cultural factors that may mitigate the relationship between self-concept and academic achievement in this population. These scales are a source of confusion for me. It looks like someone who, don't know, but it couldn't have been Umar, added some items to the Harder survey to measure students' hope and culture. How is hope defined? Who knows?
Who knows?
How is culture defined? Well, Umar isn't going to bother telling us. That might help clarify things, and we can't have that. And much of the confusion is due to the social sciences habit of using the passive voice for its publications, which in my opinion is freaking absurd. Were created. By whom? This passive construction permeates the entire dissertation, and it produces this murky mess where you don't know who's doing what.
See, now you're including grammar, syntax, and, those who don't read, Mark Lamont, this stuff is going over his head. I can guarantee you that. But he wants to sit here and take time to defend Umar, talking about the statements are strong. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up, boy. When you couldn't catch the error of 53 plus 46 not equaling 101, I don't want to hear your mouth, Mark Lamont Hill. The audacity. Johnnie Walker Dredd, have your full opinion on this matter and tell Mark Lamont Hill to kick rocks barefoot.
And as a result, accountability just goes out the window.
Oh,
don't
my
believe
God.
me? Listen to this. A correlational analysis was conducted to determine if a relationship existed between self-concept, as measured by archived scores on the Harder SPPC, and academic achievement, as measured by archived school report card grades. Did Umar conduct the correlational analysis, or was it the person who collected the data? Probably the latter, given that Umar probably can't type correlational correctly without spell check. If so, then Umar didn't do much of anything for this study. If there's a mistake in the analysis, who do you blame? Umar will just blame the original researcher, and the original researcher will just blame Umar. Hey, social sciences. The passive construction is killing your field. By the way, the hope and culture scales provide a prime example of how an author can bloat the length of their dissertation to make it look more impressive. Check this out. Hope and culture scales, which were created to gain possible information with regard to cultural factors that may mitigate the relationship between self-concept and academic achievement in this population. Additional hope and culture scales, consisting of 7 items each, which were included at the end of the Harder SPPC inventory. 3 hope and culture scales. In addition to the 6 Harder scales that were included in the Harder SPPC, 2 additional scales were created to help capture culturally relevant features of self-concept that were not assessed directly by the Harder itself. 7 items comprise the hope scale, and 7 items comprise the culture scale. The 7 hope items, included as questions 37 through 43, and the 7 culture items, included as questions 44 through 50, can be viewed in Appendix A as part of the Harder SPPC inventory to which they were attached. It's one thing to remind the reader that 14 items were added to a survey to measure hope and culture, but all these blurbs were found within 3 pages of each other. My gut feeling is that the Harder SPPC calculations were already performed by the original researcher, not Umar. He simply restated what she found. If that's the case,
Prince of Pancrust Pizza researched nothing. He couldn't even add 53 plus 46 to realize that 2 children are missing.
then all Umar had to do was read a few of the qualitative responses and, of course, pick out a few that he liked and write up his dissertation. For that, he goes around calling himself doctor. What about these hope and culture scales that were added on to the Harder SPPC, as we were told about 5 times already? Whoever made them included no tests of their validity or reliability, which are crucial for data analysis. And they never even bothered to define hope or culture. They apparently just made up some criteria and threw them in, and they're real doozies. So we go to Appendix A, where the Harder SPPC instrument is found. And we know,
when I read it, I thought that he was literally talking about the concept of hope and the aspect of culture. Like culture, diversity, hope. I mean, in its true literal definition and concept, hope, and like love and war. Like those 2 words could be anything. Peace and blessings. Peas and carrots, chicken and greens. It could be anything. Those 2 words could be replaced with any other 2 words, and it would not make this dissertation any more sophisticated at all. It wouldn't even. It would make it more hilarious, and it certainly would not even. What's the damage that's already done? The damage done was when he said that 101 students who were used in the study, and then he broke it down to 53 and 46, still coming up 2 children short. Where are the 2 missing children, Umar? Where are the 2 missing children? Can you show signs of life? Are they okay? This makes no sense. No sense. And you have another grown man out there somewhere in the cosmos trying to defend this bullshit dissertation. Mark Lamont Hill, you're the worst.
Notice right away that Umar doesn't know how to format Microsoft Office documents. Check out the placement of these boxes. And by the way, here's the first Hope survey item, item 37. It reads,
some kids really enjoy doing well in school. Other kids don't really care much about doing well in school.
The first box here falls under really true for me. So I'd have to ask the kid, what's true for you? That some kids really enjoy doing well in school? Isn't that obviously true on the face of it? Isn't it also obviously true that some kids don't do well in school? And how does this item measure hope?
Hope or
What's the connection to hope? Note that the prompt is pure hearsay. You're prompting the kid to respond to a claim that someone else is thinking. So if you thought that was bad, get a load of this one.
Some kids think that academic success is very important to their friends.
What the fuck is this? How are their friends not the same population as some kids? Is little Jimmy some kid? Or is he a friend of some kid? Unless little Jimmy is really unpopular, wouldn't he be both? So item 41 is double hearsay. You're asking the student to respond to what some other person thinks other people are thinking. And how is it a measure of hope? Then we get to the culture items, 44 through 50, and these are total screw-ups. Check this out.
Some kids don't think they can do well in school because they are black.
Now look at the other side.
Other kids think they will do well in school because they are black.
But what about those kids who think it doesn't matter? More dangerously, do you now have kids who never even thought about it, thinking about it? In this case, this instrument is harmful. I wonder what the IRB thought of this survey, if they even bothered to get IRB approval. Now, check this one out.
Some black kids think they could have done better in school had they known more about their black history and culture.
How would they know? This is an example of the emperor's nose fallacy, where people in China were asked how long the emperor's nose was. They had never seen the emperor in person, so all they could do was guess. The fallacy is in thinking that performing statistical analyses on, say, 1 million guesses somehow produces a meaningful result. Here, the students have no idea if they could have done better in school if they had known more about black history and culture, because they have no way of knowing its impact, because they don't know what knowledge.
And I mean, honestly, whether you're black, white, or, Hispanic or no matter what your race or your culture or your nationality is, or even your gender, kids are either interested in learning or they're not. Some kids perform well in certain subjects over others. You could have the same children born of the same parents in the same household, and one loves, at least doing well and striving to be a good scholar, and the other could literally care less. The other literally could care less. I don't care one way or the other. So, they may get by getting C's and B's, but you have the other child born of the same parents, raised in the same household, being taught the same values and principles as the other child. One wants to make all A's. The other one could just, hey, as long as I make a 3.0, I'm okay. Like, that has nothing to do with race or gender or anything. It's just talking about the same kids born in the same household with the same genetic makeup or similar, direct siblings with the same mother and father, and still have two different outlooks on their education and the pursuit of doing, well in school, being, scholastic. One child might do well in English or ELA and math. The other is good with science and social studies. I mean, how does hope, culture, race, gender, how does that play a role in this again? This is laughable. This is why this dissertation is a ball of garbage. It's a hot, stinking ball of shit. Though hope and culture could be chicken and rice. That's what we're just gonna call it, chicken and rice. Chicken and rice.
You're missing out on. It makes no difference how many students you have complete the survey, because each guess you add to the statistics contains no useful information. 5 people on the graduate committee, and they couldn't pick this out? They couldn't see the obvious problem here?
Oh my God.
The next one's a real doozy.
Some kids think being black makes them inferior to European American students.
You're surveying inner city 5th graders, many of whom are probably barely literate. Why not just say white students? They know what white students are. European Americans? Even better, use white kids, because you see, it would then match the kids at the start of the sentence. Why change kids to students in the latter half of the sentence, but not at the start of the sentence?
Grammar and syntax.
Have you ever seen a person on the street who's high on fentanyl and they're stooped over and drooping their arms like zombies? Have you ever wondered what they were thinking? Well, they're probably dreaming up prompts like number 48.
Some black kids don't think they are as smart as other children.
What does other children mean? If you put the definite article the in front of other, it reads the other children and means all other children. Otherwise, it reads as some other children. I think, I don't know. Will fifth graders understand the distinction? And who would disagree for any race? Some Asian kids don't think they are as smart as other children. Yeah, I'm sure there are some Asian kids out there.
All this does is just feed into these stereotypes. You're asking kids to answer questions that feed into dumb stereotypes. Mark Lamont Hill says you want to defend this garbage. This dissertation is insulting to anything that is good and holy. It's just Johnnie Walker Dread is ripping this to shreds.
Who don't think they're as smart as other children, as soon as you tell me what other children means. As an FYI, the word some is real problematic in a research study. Be very careful about using it. It could mean 2, 3, a million. It's worthless. Finally, we have
some black kids think having European American teachers helps them do better in school.
This survey was delivered in a classroom. The teacher was probably inside the classroom at the time and possibly even administering it. I wonder if the kids filling out the survey were a bit nervous about answering this one. Is it a good idea to state in a dissertation whether the teacher of record was involved in data collection? Yes. Is it a good idea to state whether the teacher was in the room? Yes, which is why it's not stated anywhere in this dissertation. And once again, it's a prompt for which students have no way of responding. If their teacher is already black, how would they know if a white teacher would help them do better? Furthermore, if you don't collect data on the teacher, is the teacher white or black, then how do you analyze the results?
Exactly.
And what does any of this have to do with culture?
Culture.
No one ever bothered to define it. I hate this dissertation. I truly do. At least
me too. Let's not forget, this was out of 101 students. Minus 2 because 2 are missing in the math. So it wouldn't even be based on hundreds of thousands. It's based on 101 allegedly because 2 are missing in the math. So once again, you get a very, very, very small percentage of students that's supposed to be in the African American community that are middle school students. And you said you only had 101 allegedly. And somehow they're answering questions as if it's based on a study done by thousands of kids here. No, just 101 minus 2 because math. I hate this dissertation so much. It is garbage. And I have the full dissertation with no commentary, just some music playing in the background, scrolling through where you can read it for yourself. Make sure you speed it up, pause, slow it down, whatever you need to do with the video speed playback so that you can read it and be just as frustrated as me, Jay Witt Podcast, Lennon Honor, Johnnie Walker Dread, and anyone else that has read this stupid dissertation. I was going to share this with my godmother, but I'll just spare her. I'll spare her.
Rashad Ritchie's was entertaining in its absurdity. It was a lot of fun discovering that he used a Marxist blog for demographic data, or that he essentially lifted a ton of the material from an undergraduate's classroom project. And I'm not joking.
I know you're not.
How can you not laugh? And while Jill Biden's dissertation involved almost no effort on her part and zero fucks given to academic rigor, reading it didn't screw my mind into the ground like Umar's. This is grueling. And it only gets worse. Another survey in the study, which we'll cover next, assumes that every child in this Philadelphia inner city school has a father in the home who's employed.
Oh my
Stay
God.
tuned for the next video in this series and pray for me. Like my video and subscribe to my channel.
All right, so
Not
what is
really.
this residential?
Yeah. That's all. I was trying to catch the video. Boy, you can't help but to laugh. That's all I did when I was reading it. I was like, I can't be alone in this. I can't be alone. Dear Lord, hope and culture. I'm just gonna replace that with chicken and mac and cheese. Like it can be anything. It can peace and blessing. Wet and dry. I mean, clouds and sunshine. It doesn't matter. It wouldn't make a difference. It doesn't make it more or less eloquent or anything. It's so stupid. The dissertation was garbage. It was a hot ball of garbage. It was 80 plus pages of bullshit. And Mark Lamont Hill should be ashamed of himself for trying to even defend it remotely. Go sit your ass down somewhere, shut the hell up, and let us have our opinion on it. Especially when you don't pay our bills. Get the hell out. Johnnie Walker Dredd, you broke this down just beautifully, sir. Thank you so much for confirming that, we're not the crazy ones for saying that this had no value. We learned nothing. It was dumb. And it shows how much of a con artist that Umar Johnson truly is. And until I see a transcript and proof that he walked across the stage by way of a video of some sort in a graduation and a copy of his actual degree, I will not believe shit anyone says about it. I don't care about his cult base telling me in the comment section, which I know they're going to say, that so-and-so said it and so-and-so said it. I want to see the document, because here in the Lady Luck Club, reading is fundamental. Thank you so much for tuning in. Shout out to you, Johnnie Walker Dredd, for doing this breakdown. I did get your comment. You're welcome. Thank you. I appreciate it. And I will be reacting to the part 4 of this, because I had a good laugh. That's all you can do at this point, is just laugh at this thing. But you guys stay tuned for the next video, and shout out to him, and make sure you go hit that like button here, share this video, share the content. Shout out to Jay Witt Podcast, my brother in Christ, and to Lynn and Honor as well for going over this. And Mark Lamont Hill can kiss all of our ass. All right, until the next one, Lady Luck Club out. Deuces.